Worship is what you give your time to. See, everyone worships something. Worship can be a very strong word if you're from the church, or it can just be a basic word if you're not from the church. And today I kind of want to focus on what is worship and how it correlates with the season that you guys find yourselves in your guys' own journey. But see, what we give our time to reveals what we truly value. So I said earlier, I have two little girls. They are 9 and they are 6. One's in 3rd grade, one's in kindergarten. I get to coach them in their sports. That's my favorite thing in the whole world, is to get to share a field and a court with my girls. But if I were to ask them, hey, how do you spell love? They would spell it Time. Because for my girls and my relationship as their father, they're more concerned about how much time am I investing in them, not so much if I'm just telling them, hey, I love you. Especially in today's culture, right? The word love is everywhere. It's been watered down. And so my girls could really, at the end of the day, care less if I say I love you. They want me to show them that I love you. And the best way you can do that is with time. So just like our kids, or just like my kids, we give our time to show what matters most to us. So if my kids are feeling valued by me, it's because I'm being intentional each and every day to give them a piece of my time. We're given 1,440 minutes every single day. It's the greatest gift that we have in what we call life. It's the greatest resource that we have in life. The 1,440 minutes that we have each and every day, if we're lucky to breathe tomorrow. Because every day is a gift. But when I go back to when I was your guys' age, I turned 40. Me and LeBron, he's the GOAT, by the way. We turned 40 this year. We're really excited. I'm pumped to go to his party. It's going to be a blast. I hope you guys get invited too. But back when I was your age, when I had hair, my nickname was Sunshine. True story. If you've seen the movie Remember the Titans, the quarterback, that's what I used to look like. I was never a quarterback. I wasn't that good. But I had long, shaggy hair. If you guys can just imagine that real fast with me, right? Okay, visualize that. But when I was your age, here was my schedule. I played college athletics. I was a baseball player. And my days, my time, looked like this. I'd wake up. I'd go to class. After class, I'd hit the weight room. After the weight room, I'd be on the baseball field. After about 3-4 hour practice, I'd be back at we had a little apartment with all my roommates, some basketball players, baseball players, and we would do our evening activities as college athletes. Now, if we're being honest with each other, those college evening choices that you have every single night look different if we're being real with each other, right? So I had a choice early on in college to decide what I wanted to focus on. Did I want to focus on those fun late night college activities that a lot of people did in my time at my college, that a lot of my teammates were participating in? Or did I want to focus on the majors in my life, which at that time were, I'd put athletics first and then academics second? And early on, if I'm being honest with you, I would participate a lot in those fun athletic college activities because all my peers were doing it. And what I learned very quickly was the next morning when I had to go to class, hit the weight room, hit the field, was I was tired. I just didn't feel my best. And more importantly, I began to have this battle internally of knowing that my values that I was raised with and why I was really there was this tension between the two. Like, how was I spending my time and what I was really about? And I had to begin to have this battle. But see, today, here's the reality. Today, we face a lot of distractions. We have distractions of screen time. We have distractions of streaming networks. We have distractions of those college activities that we all know what they are, that we have the option to be a part of each and every night, or weekends, or whenever you find yourself doing. But there's all these things vying for our hearts, our attention, and our time. And that's what I want to focus on today, is how are you taking advantage of the greatest gift, no matter what you believe about God, how are you doing with the greatest gift of life with your time? Because the days just get faster and faster the older you get. And the choices just get bigger and bigger the older you get. And the consequences become more real the older and older you get. I came across a quote recently that really struck me. It talked about treat your body in a way every single day that you're going to live forever, but treat your soul and invest in your soul in a way where you're going to die tomorrow. So how are you doing with your soul? Which leads me to today's story, which is out of Philippians chapter 4, 6 through 7. I'm going to read it, but before I do, I want to share some stats with you, okay? Here's some stats. The average screen time per person right now, as of last month, is 7 hours per day. The average person is spending 7 hours in front of a screen per day. 3.5 hours of those time are said to be by streaming services, which means you are binge watching way too many shows. And then 2.5 hours of those time are said to be spent on social media, whether it be Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. And the next one that's going to come that we don't even know about yet, which maybe it's already out there. Be real. There you go. But it says this, that college students right now, so that would be you guys, are averaging at best 6 hours of sleep, which I would say is probably less than that. Who gets more than 6 hours of sleep every single night? Who gets less than that, if you're being honest? I think 6 hours is too high, to be honest. But that's what it says, 6 hours of sleep. When it's said this, what's the average you've heard your whole life you should be getting? 8. You guys all know it. Who follows it? Nada. Right? Nada. But here's the impact of these distractions. They're time wasters. They affect us both mentally and physically, that lead to anxiety, stress, and the comparison trap. See, all this excessive screen time and lack of sleep, they get linked to higher rates of depression and anxiety, which only leads to poor choices. Like, there's no debating that. It's just called like common sense. If you're full of depression and anxiety, you're going to be full of fear, you're going to be full of discouragement, and that's going to lead to poor choices. Which brings me back to Philippians, where we want to focus on today, cultivating a life of prayer and worship. Two very churchy words that you may have heard before, you may have not. Two words that might trigger something in your heart, like prayer, boring. Worship, no thank you. Or, man, I love to worship. I'm super bummed the band is sick today because that's what I love to do. Or, if you want to go deeper into the word of worship, which we'll talk about today, worship isn't just singing, it's a lifestyle. It's your time. Prayer isn't just words. It's where's your attention. But in order to do so, we must first understand, for us to truly cultivate and begin to grow in our relationship with God and with Jesus, and grow in our relationship with worship and prayer, we have to begin to understand, first and foremost, is where am I spending my time? Where are my eyes? Where is my heart? How is my soul? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7 say this. I'll talk a little bit about who wrote it, why he wrote it, and who it was for. But before I do, here's what it says. Don't worry about anything, but pray and ask God for everything you need. Always giving thanks for what you have, and because you belong to Christ Jesus, God's peace will stand guard over all your thoughts and feelings. His peace can do this far better than our human minds. Who here has ever been stressed out? Who here has ever felt pressure? My athletes. Right? It's a common thing. Stress and pressure kind of go together. Whether you're an athlete, a student, doesn't matter. You're going to feel stress. You're going to feel pressure at some point in your life. Those two things begin to trigger our brain. Our brain then goes into survival mode, which is going to trigger an action. And depending on how we're doing at that time, our mindset and our souls, it'll determine what action we take. And so this author of this book called Philippians was actually written to a specific group of people. It was a letter, because back then they didn't have email, they didn't have social media, obviously. So there was this man named Paul who was all about Jesus, but at one point in his life he was about a kind of a different way of life. But he was newer to the faith of who Jesus was, and he was all in. His mindset had been transformed, which changed his life and changed his actions, and he began to go out to different communities, different demographics of people, people that looked like him, people that didn't look like him. He was very talented and gifted in being able to reach any kind of generation or any kind of demographic. And he began to go out into these cities and talk about who Jesus was, and he would, in the church world, he would plant churches in these communities and raise up leaders and then go to his next city. And this one was called Philippi. And the reason why he's writing this, but before I talk about the reason why, where he wrote this is just as important. He wrote this letter while he was locked up. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you've been locked up before, but I can only guess. I was locked up once in high school because I did a bad practical joke. And one day if I come back and share it with you, I'll tell you what it was. But don't do practical jokes because there's consequences. Anyway, so here's Paul locked up. And what is he doing in that moment? His mindset. He easily could have begun to feel bad for himself. He could have easily begun to blame the Roman government because, again, he was wrongfully arrested, all for just sharing who Jesus was. So he wasn't in jail for doing anything shady or wrong. He was in jail because the Roman government were not fans of what he was doing because he was causing division and he was causing disruption in what they wanted for their culture, which went against what Jesus wants for us and for them back then. And here he is locked up in prison writing a letter of hope and encouragement to a group of friends that he had just been with not too long ago, to encourage them and to remember to keep their minds on Jesus. But here's the cool thing about the story of this letter and these words that I read a minute ago, is they begin to address things that we face every single day in our culture. Anxiety. Ever felt it? I have. It sucks. But it's real. A lack of peace, been there. It's hard. It stresses me out. It causes problems in my marriage. It makes me not be present with my girls, and instead I snap at my girls. It causes me to be lack of focused at work, and I'm not getting things done because I'm thinking about fill in the blank. I'm sure you guys can all relate with anxiety and a restful heart and what that looks like in your life for different reasons. But I want to fast forward now to a story of Jesus, because I think it's important that we bring everything back to Jesus. So Paul hinted at this in his letter, that there was something, as we would call someone, that can change your mindset. In the midst of anxiety, in the midst of so many distractions in the world trying to pull you away from real life and put you in this pit of screen time, which leads to all the negative stuff, or things that might be good and fill a void for a little bit, but really at the end of the day don't mean anything. And so here's the story of Jesus. Jesus had some close friends. He had some best friends, is what I would call them. I'm sure all of you here have friends that you trust, and you love to go over to their house and hang out, be together, eat together, just not think about anything, watch the Seahawks beat the 49ers, that kind of night. Okay? Any Niners fans in here? One? Everyone feel bad for him. I'm just joking. Hey, come on now. No. I could talk about the Niners and the Seahawks all day. But here's Jesus now going to one of his closest friends' home, Mary, Martha, and his friend Lazarus. And he's getting ready to hang out with them. It's been a long journey. Okay? Every time they travel in the Bible, it's a long, hard journey. And this story is found in the book of Luke, chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. And this is what it says. It says, while Jesus and his followers were traveling, he went into a town, and a woman named Martha let him stay at her house. She had a sister named Mary. Mary was sitting at Jesus' feet and listening to him teach, but her sister Martha was busy doing all the work that had to be done. Martha went in and said, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Who likes to blame teammates here? All of you probably. It's all good. Come on now. But her sister Martha was busy doing all the hard work, had to be done. Martha went in and said, Lord, you don't care my sister has let me do all these work for myself. Tell her to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are getting worried and upset about too many things. Been there. There have been plenty of seasons in my life where I've been worried and upset about so many things, it's taken my eyes off what really matters. Jesus goes on to say, only one thing is important. Only one thing. Mary has made the right choice, and it will never be taken away from her. So the story of Mary and Martha, there's Martha running around the house trying to get everything ready. Who here has a mom who loves to host? Nobody. Awesome. One person. Cool. Your mom's awesome. So there's this Martha who loves to host, loves to have a clean home, loves to want everything to be perfect. And then you got Mary who wants to chill, hang out with Jesus, and just be at his feet and talk. And Jesus was more concerned in that moment, like what Martha was doing was important and okay, but what was not okay was her response. It wasn't so much the action, it was the response of her being overwhelmed, her being upset, and then lashing out at her sister. And Jesus was trying to have her understand, hey, it's just about the one thing. And I don't know where you guys stand with Jesus in here. Some of you guys may have heard about him your whole life. Some of you guys may only are here because you have to be here, and this is just kind of checking a box for you. But man, if I could just leave you with one thing, it's Jesus. And Paul talked about to the church of Philippi and Philippians, and like Jesus is talking to Mary and Martha here, Jesus changes everything. From your mind to your soul, which then leads to a different action in your life. Doesn't mean all your problems are going to be solved. Doesn't mean your bank account's going to be full. Doesn't mean all your dreams are going to come true. Doesn't mean you're going to go play D2 or D1 after this. Doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to have a degree on the wall because you said yes to Jesus. You still got to put the work in, right? You still have to choose to step into growth each and every day. For my athletes out there, it's no different. If you want to get better at football, how do you get better? You watch film. You get in the weight room. You practice. You get beat up. You don't play football and you don't get beat up. You don't play football and don't go home sore. Because that means you didn't do your job. There's no different when it comes to life. You want to live life with Jesus, you're going to be sore. You're going to have to put the work in. He paid the ultimate price by dying on the cross. It is finished. It is done. But we have to step into growth every single day and put the work in ourselves. And that's what Paul was trying to get the church of his day, Philippi, and the book of Philippians to understand. It's mindset. You want to develop a prayer life. You want to develop a life of worship. You got to get right with Jesus first. And so this story of Jesus is a powerful reflection of how time reflects worship. You see, when Jesus visited Mary and Martha, Martha was busy. Mary sat at his feet and listened. How are you at listening? See, prayer isn't just talking to God. It's also listening to God. We're not good in silence. If I just stopped talking right now and we all just sat in silence, how many of you would feel uncomfortable? Most of you. Because we don't train ourselves to be in silence anymore. We always have to have an AirPod in. There always has to be a TV on in the background. There always has to be something on. You see, it's in the silence where our heart speaks to us, where real life happens, where those insecurities and that hurt begins to maybe bubble up a little bit. That's your soul saying, I need help. I need healing. I need connection. I need purpose. Like those feelings of anxiety and whatever else you want to fill it in aren't necessarily a negative. It's a warning. It's a warning that your soul needs to be reconnected with who created it, and that's Jesus. And so I want to fast forward to today for some steps that you can begin to take in your own life, no matter where you're at with Jesus. And then we're going to talk about a couple of questions in the day. But here's my first challenge for you. Step one is this. Begin to reflect and prioritize what matters to you. Because most of you in here are probably 19, 20, 21, 22. Like, you're not kids anymore. You're young adults. Like, it's real life. You got to figure out life. And that's not me pressuring or making you try to stress you out. It's just the reality of, what do you want for your life? And then you got to figure out what you need to do to get that. And then you got to figure out, how am I going to designate my time to get that? Things aren't just going to be handed to you. It's not how it works. It's hard. You're going to be sore. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have good games. You're going to have bad games. You're going to have a great practice. You're going to have a practice you just want to throw your helmet and walk off the field. It's called life. But you keep showing up. Because Jesus showed up for you, and he never will stop showing up for you. That's what the cross is all about. That's what Paul was trying to get them to understand in Philippi, in the book of Philippians. That's what Jesus was trying to get Martha to understand about what was going on in their home at that time. But you see, when we begin to give our lives to Jesus, there's this peace that overcomes us. It's not a peace that you think of when what this world has to offer. It's a peace that I can't even describe or put into words. Just like the word love. When we say God loves you, it's not the love that you've heard about, read about, or said to somebody. It's a love that is indescribable, that will knock you off your feet and transform you. I saw a video last year, I think it was last spring, when you guys baptized a ton of people. Like, that was one of the coolest videos I've ever seen in my life. I tell people about that like I was there. Because it was so exciting for me to see people of your age to take that step. Because that's love. When you're publicly declaring your commitment to who Jesus is and what he's done in you. And you want everyone to know. Here's the second step I want you to take. First step is begin to prioritize. What do you want? What's it going to take to get it? What's the time commitment going to be? The second one is this. You got to set boundaries on your distractions. You guys have so many distractions. Way more than I had at your age. Limit the social media. Limit the streaming. Like, go to bed earlier so you can get up earlier. Or go to bed earlier so you don't feel tired the next day. Like, just get back to the basics. One of my favorite athletes of all time is Kobe Bryant. I say this all the time when I speak. I coach baseball as well at a local high school here. And I'm always talking to our athletes, don't get bored with the basics. That's a famous Kobe Bryant. I can tell you a story about that, but I don't got time for it. But get back to the basics. All the things that whoever you lived with growing up tried to get you to do, but you refused to do them because you were a kid. The third thing is this. Build a routine of community. Build a routine of a life with Jesus. Now, if you're here today and you don't know Jesus and you want to know him, I would love to pray with you when we're all done. Or find a leader or a teacher here that you know that you can trust. If you're here today and you just need prayer support because that anxiety, that stress, that hopelessness is beginning to just take you over, like, talk to somebody before you walk out those doors today. I just went and spoke at Chihuahua last Thursday and Friday. Chihuahua is a local high school here. You want to know why I had to go speak there? Because somebody lost enough hope where they took their own life. Like, that's not okay. To get to a point where you take your own life. Your life matters. Your soul matters. Like, I know the one who made you because his name is Jesus. He loves you so, 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 so much. All the cliches, but it will change your life. If you're here and you're feeling that kind of hopelessness, man, you got to talk to somebody. I know a handful of the staff here and how much they care about you, because every time I talk to them, they can't stop talking about you. So if they're being hard on you, it's because they love you. It's called tough love. Who's here has had a coach where, man, they were just on you about everything? That's because the coach cares about you. Who here's had a coach who's like, nah, I'm good? It's probably because at some point he could have been a bad coach, but two, maybe you weren't feeling what he was giving to you, and he was like, all right, that kid isn't buying in. Tough love is a real thing. We all need it. Last thing I'm going to say is this. What you spend time on reflects what you worship. If I had it my way, my prayer for you would be that you would all begin to worship the one true God. You would all begin to worship Jesus. But if you get anything out of today, remember that your life matters, and time is the ultimate gift. What are you going to do with it? And please, please don't walk out that door if there's something in you right now bubbling up, because that's your soul saying help. And screen time, vaping, drinking, smoking, girls, none of that is going to help you long term. It's going to give you a little stimulation in that moment. You feel good, but not long term. It's just going to defeat you from the inside out. I know it because I've lived it and I've seen it.